We will reconvene this the Board of Commissioners meeting from Monday, May the 14th. Welcome everyone here. And here on the mainland, we have Commissioner Shannon Swindell, Commissioner Earl Pugh, County Manager Chris Noble, Clerk Lois Stokesbury, and on Ocracoke, I believe we have Donnie Shoemate, Justin Gibbs, and Corinne and Tom Paul in present. I'd like to welcome all of you that are on Facebook, and I guess this will also be live tomorrow on Hyde County Network, or
our page, yes, sir, our web page.
On the homepage, web page. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and I'm going to ask Shannon if he will lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time of gathering, for this beautiful day you've given us, Lord. We just pray this meeting goes. Give us wisdom and clarity, and for those traveling this weekend, Lord, we ask for their safety. All these things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, let's pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have an agenda before us, and I believe on the first item on the agenda is consider the minutes of the May 4th meeting, but I think we will just take that off and consider the May 4th meeting and the night's meeting, because this is a reconvened meeting. So if I would like to strike the consider the minutes. Are there any other items that need to change on the agenda?
No, sir.
If not, do I hear a motion to consider the agenda as amended?
So moved.
I have a motion by Shannon Swindell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Paul. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. All right, I believe, Chris, there are items. The next item is the fiscal year 2020-2021 Hyde County budget discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And tonight we were scheduled for the presentation of the 2021 budget message. It is an understatement to say that the economic and revenue impact from Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19 are both severe and uncertain. In regard to Hurricane Dorian, preliminary estimates from building permit applications show a loss of property tax value on Ocracoke Island at approximately $15 million. This does not account for the significantly higher number of addresses that were determined to have substantial damage that was completed by the North Carolina Department of Public Safety Risk Management Section. We will really not have a clear idea of our total loss of property tax value until after the Board of E&R complete that work, but I do expect that number to increase. Although our normal indicators for sales and use tax are not yet published, we estimate a reduction of 30%, which would result in a budget shortfall of approximately $458,000. Now, please remember that this is our loss due to Dorian, and it does not encompass the full loss of Dorian and COVID combined. In a report delivered to the Office of State Budget Management from the Hyde County's Office of the Manager in early April, we estimated our total budget shortfall from Dorian alone would be approximately $715,000. In regard to COVID-19, I want to update you on the many primary county revenue sources impacted as a result of extremely reduced consumer activity, mandates put in place to combat COVID-19, and the corresponding economic downturn. It's almost impossible to make solid predictions because there are so many unknown factors, including how long mitigation efforts will be necessary, what types of physical support the state and federal government and the Federal Reserve will provide. how long and what shape an economic recovery will take, and a near complete lack of data and comparable events to inform the current public health crisis. I believe that we should be prepared for extreme impacts to our local budget due to our reliance on tourism and the downturn of our tourism-based economy. Wrapping up our 2020 budget and crafting our 2021 fiscal year plans under this new and uncertain dynamic will be an extremely challenging task. We are looking to the guidance of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, the UNC School of Government, and our other neighbors in North Carolina counties to guide us through this process. Talking about the economic impact and the uncertainty of that economic impact, because of historic and sudden decline, because this historic and sudden decline is unlike any previous downturn, it's challenging to use any previous data and experience as a guide, that they are not useful comparisons. For example, during the Great Recession, which stretched for 18 months from December 2007 to June 2009, taxable sales in North Carolina declined by -8%. Between 2007 and 2008 and 2008 and 2009, and by -5% between 2008-09 and 2009-10, before they started to make a slow increase. Now, in contrast, the economy in 2020 generally was perceived as strong before COVID-19, and that is not just the case in North Carolina, but in Hyde County as well. As intentionally slow in certain sectors of production, COVID-19 is slow in certain sectors of production and greatly impacting tourism. Economic analysis forecasts a sharp economic contradiction in the second quarter of 2020, with some projecting a second quarter GDP drop of -18% to -20% at an annualized rate. And some economists caution against applying traditional policies and using standard economic indicators during this engineered, controlled, partial, temporary shutdown of our economy. Analysis performed on early personal consumption expenditures show a 28% annualized pace of decline in the second quarter of 2020, according to Wells Fargo, and unemployment claims, as you all know, are at historic levels. And while some economists originally believed the economy would rebound in the second half of the year, there's growing uncertainty around what the recovery will look like and whether it will be V-shaped, what type of COVID-19 testing protocols what type of COVID-19 testing protocols and vaccines will be available and when, and how the phased lifting of mitigation efforts and restrictions may influence consumer behavior. In developing and modifying budgets, Hyde County will likely have to take a quarter-by-quarter or even month-by-month approach and apply every possible recovery estimate to our timelines. And counties are developing and have, in regard to our county budget, two challenges among many going forward will be cash flow and balancing the budget. And that is further compacted by Dorian, our cash flow issues. And now we have COVID-19. So cash flow will be a real issue moving forward. We do not currently know if the legislator will postpone or modify sales tax collection or that distribution process, or waive interest payments when it returns for its legislative session. Draft legislation to waive interest on late income tax payments has been discussed. Any modifications to counties' expected and budgeted sales tax revenue stream, compounded by the severe drop in our economy, will cause the greatest decline to cash flow and FY 2021 budgets that I believe we've ever seen. NCACC continues to emphasize the importance that we anticipate expected revenue streams for our county to decline, and when that impact will be most felt this year. NCACC also just sent a letter to the Office of the State Treasury highlighting an understanding of the importance of financial stability and also requesting flexibility with our operational guidelines and statutory deadlines during this time. However, it is our desire to still pass a balanced budget and add funds through that budget through budget revision if our revenues increase, and I'll discuss those options towards the end of this analysis. Let's talk about local sales and use taxes. Revenue from local sales and use tax distribution make up a substantial portion of our county budget. Because the timeline for local sales tax collection and distribution process includes multiple steps, it's very hard for us to anticipate what those numbers will look like. The NC Department of Revenue does not immediately see the sales tax implications from COVID-19 because those numbers are reported in arrears. The governor declared a state of emergency in North Carolina on March 10th, and March sales, April collections will be distributed in June, so it'll still be several months before we see an early picture of what this impact looks like. April and May sales will be distributed in July and August and will almost certainly take a huge hit. In past years, March through June taxable sales have trended relatively higher to other months. However, we have no idea of how that will look for this year. NC Department of Revenue has promised to share this information on their preliminary sales tax returns as soon as they are able, but we've not received them yet. A decline of local sales tax revenue is certainly expected. In regard to property taxes, forecasting changes to property tax revenues in this upcoming budget year proves very challenging, not just in regard to the Dorian destruction, but in regard to COVID-19, because it's often dependent on the same timeline and recovery factors. Counties, including Hyde County, may see an increase in the number of appeals from taxpayers. We may face increased economic hardship, and that'll affect our taxpayers' ability to pay. And further, we may even see some businesses that'll close, and that's going to reduce our tax base. Tax and tags. Counties get a huge amount of money each year for tax and tags, and because taxpayers are not getting their cards inspected and registrations renewed, this reduction will increase. Legislative leadership has expressed support to retroactively extend vehicle registration deadlines when the legislature returns to session. However, those specific details have not yet been released. Occupancy tax. Occupancy tax will experience a steeper decline than other revenues based on the reduction of tourism in Hyde County, and the hospitality industry is going to take a huge hit. The annual impact is also unknown due to the uncertainty about the timing of the lifting of restrictions. It's currently unknown and it's difficult to project. Utilities. Executive Issue 124 at the end of March prohibited utility service providers from terminating service for residential customers for non-payment. Hyde County had already suspended disconnections for non-payment and will continue to absorb these costs while the mandate is in place. Now, Executive Order 124 allows utility service providers to set up payment plans with customers, but there will be lost revenue in regard to utility payments and late fee payments, and there will also be some question as our customers' ability to pay will vary. Medicaid hold harmless is going to be a big issue for Hyde County. Under the General Statute 105-523, as part of changes in 2007, eligible counties receive 90% of the estimated Medicaid hold harmless payment that they are entitled to in March of every year. This hold harmless payment is distributed because counties exchanged a portion of their local sales and use tax revenue for the state's agreement to assume responsibility for certain non-administrative Medicaid costs. The concern this year, due to the impact of COVID-19 on sales tax revenues, sales tax collection in the coming months may not exceed Medicaid costs, making Medicaid hold harmless reconciliation a negative number. In this case, counties would potentially have to refund the applicable portion of their Medicaid hold harmless payment that they received in March of 2020. While it's not possible to estimate whether there will be a payback and what our county's payback will be at this time, it is recommended that we earmark or find some way to designate and not expend our Medicaid hold harmless payment in case we do have a payback situation this year. Based on reduced sales tax revenues, counties, including Hyde County, may receive a reduced or no Medicaid hold harmless payment at all. We are being urged by NCCA to earmark in some way that Medicaid hold harmless payment. Other issues that will affect revenue, we also expect drastic decreases in our revenue from beer and wine excise taxes, solid waste disposal taxes, and these revenues will likely be tremendously impacted by the economic downturn, not just from Dorian, but from COVID-19. In addition, the base employer contribution rate for the local government employees retirement system increased this year on an average from 8.95% for our non-law enforcement members and 9.7% for our law enforcement members. So we have that increased cost this year, and also our health insurance went up a moderate 6%. We have a few options. Our options moving forward as a local government and to deal with this uncertainty is to potentially adopt an interim budget. But I believe that what the option that we're going to look to is going to be to adopt the budget ordinance by July 1 as required, but estimate our revenues very conservatively. As stated above, the budget ordinance must be balanced. Thus, if Hyde County is to underestimate its revenue, we must also limit our expenditures. But I do believe that we will be able to do that and successfully adopt a budget in July 1. I have given you this information tonight because I want you to understand the uncertainty and the flux in regard to where we are in crafting the budget for the board's review. We're still very unsure about how the CARES Act money will be allocated and how it will be distributed, and we expect to hear more of that in the coming weeks, but for right now we don't know what level of revenue we'll receive and how that money will come down to us. We do anticipate funds, but we're very unsure about the amounts, and we're equally unsure about the guidelines to spend it. In regard to our state budget, our state legislators, they come back into session Monday, 5/18, and they'll continue COVID legislation. And they'll be there all of next week at least. But beyond that, no one is really sure, and we have no concrete answers on what they will be able to accomplish while they're there. With all that information, I felt like I needed some more time to give this board a proper budget message. And what I'm asking the board to do is to recess and or adjourn per the clerk's advisement and reconvene this meeting on Thursday, May 28th at 6 p.m. to hear your budget message. I would like to present the budget to you as planned on June 1st at your regular BOC meeting. And then there'll be time for workshops in June if required. I further suggest that the board plan to adopt that budget on Monday, June 29th at a 6 p.m. meeting. And I am open for discussion and/or questions. And I know that was some that was some hard facts and figures to swallow, and I just wanted to be truly honest with you all as we move forward. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have.
So that gives you 2 weeks to get the budget done. So you think by that time you'll have more concrete evidence?
I think we have to. I think we have to, sir. We have to have 30 days between the day that I give you your budget message and the day we adopt the budget. That there's no more leeway in that schedule. The only other option we would have, sir, would be to adopt an interim budget. And I would, at this point, suggest that we adopt a very conservative budget instead of an interim budget. And if revenues are higher than we projected them to be, we can, of course, accept new money into our budget through budget revision and increase expenditures accordingly.
Well, I believe our calendar said we would adopt the budget on June the 15th, but you're proposing to adopt it on June the 29th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because you want to do the budget message on May the 28th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's right. I'd like to give you your budget message on a recessed version of this meeting Thursday, May 28th. Give you your budget on June 1, and then adopt the budget on a meeting called Monday, June 29th. And I've spoken to some of our neighboring county managers, and they are also trying to extend their decision-making process as long as possible, so we have the best data to provided to us as we're going to get.
Is there any discussion on extending the dates that Chris has proposed to give the budget message on May the 28th? And moving the adoption of the budget until June the 29th, but you will present us with a budget on June 1st. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir, that's correct.
Is there any thoughts or discussion on those items?
That makes a lot of sense to me. There's so much that is in flux that waiting as long as we can to get as much information as we can, both in terms of revenue, and particularly in terms of revenue, but also just to try to set those revenue projections against a budget calculation and try to see where we are. I think waiting as long as we can within the requirements of the law makes a real lot of sense at this point.
Well, I think those dates keeps us in with the law, so that was and I think that's a good idea too. That we will have maybe a better understanding of some of the revenues that we don't know about right now.
Yes, sir, and potentially maybe the federal and state governments have been able to pass us down some more information by then.
Chris, can I ask what's the difference between an interim budget and adopting a regular budget that we can make amendments to?
Sure, Tom. I know a little bit about interim budgets from the research that I've done utilizing the School of Government. And in an interim budget, if we do not adopt our budget ordinance before July 1st and we need to make expenditures, we can adopt an interim budget, making interim appropriation for the purpose of paying salaries, debt service payments, and the usual ordinary expenditures that we know that we're going to have until the budget ordinance is adopted. It's basically a stopgap measure. An interim budget may not include appropriations for salary and wage increases, capital expenditure items, and program and service expansions. It may not levy property taxes, nor should it change or increase other tax or user fee rates. The purpose of the interim budget is to temporarily keep operations going at current levels. The interim budget need not include revenues to balance all of the appropriations. All expenditures made under an interim budget must be charged against the comparable appropriations in the annual budget ordinance once it is adopted. In other words, the interim expenditures eventually are funded with revenues included in the budget ordinance. And I've watched several webinars in regard to interim budgets. There are a lot of talk in North Carolina. I did speak with some of our other county managers surrounding us, and it's everyone's goal, sir, to try to adopt a real budget as late as possible. Nobody really wants to go with the interim budget process if possible. I think that we would all rather look to budget our revenues as conservatively as possible and budget our expenditures as conservatively as possible. And if we have any revenue that is larger than what we've projected, then at that point we can make some decisions about increasing our expenditures mid-year through budget amendments, or whether we just add to the general fund.
Maybe with that guideline. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just going to say, it strikes me that the interim budget option just strikes me as being kind of inviting chaos, which we certainly don't need at this point.
Yes, sir. We would really like to have the tools that we need to adopt this budget on the appropriate schedule I outlined. And I think it's possible, Commissioner Paul, but I think that it would be really nice for at least the legislature to finish and for potentially the CARES Act legislation to be adopted.
Mm-hmm.
My comments kind of tying into that. If the state legislators know we're on a deadline, then that can be a catalyst for them to go ahead and put together the package. I'm sure that probably the proportion or the distribution has been worked out based upon past distributions, but also what we've faced through all this. So.
And the only good news is that, well, it's good news and bad news, is that we're not in this alone. And so we have several NCACC, North Carolina Association of County Commissioner web conferences a week. So all the counties are working together, and NCACC is working to give us the most information that they can, and they're leaning hard on federal and state representatives to fund counties and to try to make our ends meet on a county level. And so we do have our friends and neighbors in our neighboring counties and other municipalities to use as sounding boards and to figure out what they're doing. And I think everybody's in the same boat. I'll commend you, gentlemen, and I'll commend our boards in the past for building such a healthy fund balance, because this is exactly the reason for having a healthy fund balance, or is this situation.
What is the legal amount of fund balance that you must bring?
Ms. Corinne?
The legal fund balance for the LGC is 8%. Statewide. We've always had considerably more than that because of being a coastal county and knowing the rate of the, natural disasters that we have. I will tell you that I did take $1 million, and Chris knows this, out of it in January because of our ongoing payments to our debris contractor. But as of yesterday, I went ahead with FEMA and completely capped off our current expenditures at $2.8 million with our FEMA representative, and went ahead and sent that to expedite a payment process. We're still in the process of paying our debris contractors, but I went ahead and requested that we cap that and send it on to the CDC to request payment on what we've currently expended. So, case in point, if I get that back relatively quickly, I can put that $1 million back. But I will tell you that it's been a very tedious process because we still haven't received the 25% off of Matthew or any percent off of Florence. So that is still up in the air, but I did expedite that process as I could for the payment to the debris contractors.
I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendations of our county manager to have our budget message on June 28th at 6 p.m. The budget will be presented on June 1st at a regular meeting, and we'll have an approved budget on June 29th at a special meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those dates?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion by Commissioner Paul, a second by Commissioner Swindell. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank y'all. I think that's a good move. All right.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And I could not have a better team to work through this issue with. And that's a bright spot in a dark day.
Yeah. Do you have any public comments?
Sir, we do not have any public comments for this meeting. We do not have any budget matters, but I do believe we do have a special management report from Commissioner Tom Paul.
Tom, you have a report?
Yeah. Chris, I didn't actually know this item was going to be on the agenda, but
Oh, I apologize, sir.
that's okay. Agenda is the message that I wrote and has been put out through social media, which is basically a welcome message to non-resident property owners and visitors. I took the initiative to do this for a couple of reasons that are probably pretty obvious, but one is that there was some discussion going on in social media and through a pretty significant email that went out to 3,000 people that had I don't think it was overtly intended to be a negative tone, but it certainly had a pretty negative tone to it. And I was fearful that it would give people the wrong impression of what we want. And as to whether or not non-resident property owners and visitors would be welcomed on the island. And they are indeed welcomed on the island. We're lifting our restrictions on visitor travel to the island, and everybody's working furiously right now, and we'll be working all through the night and all the next day and all through the next night, and doing everything possible to be ready so that when visitors and for the non-resident property owners who are already allowed to come, but will be coming more to come to the island, that they'll have a good experience, and they'll see the same old Ocracoke in the sense that we welcome them not just into our businesses but into our community. And Even though a lot else has changed, that has not, and that was the intent of this message. I'm hoping that we can make this message available to people as they come to the island, either as a handout at the ferry or as a handout at local businesses and through the hotel, motel, and cottage folks. It's generally got a pretty good response from people who've read it, and I think it indicates who we are as a community and who we are as a county relative to what's going on with visitors and the challenges that we're facing. That's it.
Thank you, Tom. Shannon, did you have anything you wanted to report or the manager report? Do you have anything else, Chris?
I did, I will tell you really quickly, since we last met, we have been working with the health department to get our businesses all the information that they need. We had a great OCBA meeting last night that was broadcast live on Facebook to try to lay out guidelines for retail, restaurants, and lodging accommodations. I think the ladies put some pretty great information out there. That information for any business that's preparing to open that needs tools is all on the health department website, linked to the county website. But if they have questions, they are certainly welcome to call me or call the health department. I am putting together those business resource packages, and I will be delivering those to as many local businesses as I can reach, to help them know what those guidelines are and to help them adhere to them. Everybody is very busy getting ready for reopening the island for visitors, and we want to support everybody as much as possible. We've been working really hard on the solid waste situation. We do have a bottleneck in regard to trash disposal on the island. We have a transitional period from now until June 1st, where we'll have a new contractor come on board to service our solid waste hauling. Our convenience site employees, specifically in Ocracoke, have been quite overwhelmed, and I can't say enough about what good spirits they've had and how hard they're working. And we are working towards making sure we've got capacity. Solid Waste Director James Blunt is using some innovative methods in order for us to have that capacity for household C&D and cardboard. And we're going to be doing the best we can over the 2 weeks, even though we might limp through it. We're giving it all our time and attention, and we have a lot of positive feelings about our beginning again on June 1st. And also we're working really hard to get our chipping operation back up and going. And in the interim, James Blunt is working to get custom tree care over there the beginning of next week to pick up on some of our backlog of vegetative debris. We've been working with state OSBM to further fund Hurricane Dorian recovery efforts, and we have received a generous grant and loan offer from OSBM just this week, which will mean more money for the long-term recovery group's individual assistance office, individual assistance efforts. It'll mean some reconstruction of some homes. And we are finalizing the HMGP application from the state to FEMA for the 100+ homes that applied for elevation. So we're staying really busy. We've got a lot of balls in the air, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions. The board and/or our citizens, just call 252-926-4178, or you can email me at knoble@hydecounty.nc.gov, and we'll work as hard as we can to get you the resources you need or answer your questions.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any other comments? I'd just like to say.
Sure, can I just raise one question? I don't know
Yes.
if it's real critical that we deal with it, but I'll just bring it up because it came up at the OCBA meeting the other night, and that is the fact that we're currently under a stay-at-home order, and it somewhat, the tone of a stay-at-home order kind of conflicts with the lifting of the visitor restrictions. People at the meeting asked, does that mean that visitors are freer to travel around than residents are? And we answered the question by saying that the stay-at-home order had been put in place well before we knew that the visitor restriction would lift, and that it's probably pretty much a moot point. I wonder if we want to just lift that stay-at-home order at this point, or do we want to just let it stay in place until the 22nd?
Tom, if Justin is still over there on your side, I'd really like his feedback on that question and that issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know we extended the stay-at-home order locally in the absence of the governor's order being extended, but at this point, the governor's order has been extended as well to the 22nd. So even if we lifted it locally, we would still have the governor's executive order statewide.
Justin, can you talk a little, do you have any
Understood, yeah.
understanding about how the stay-at-home order may or may not conflict with the lifting of our visitor restriction?
Well, my interpretation of it would be, even though we've lifted travel restrictions to the county, that anybody that enters, it's highly suggested that they follow those orders and the stay-at-home order and only go out for essential functions or outdoor activities and continue to maintain social distance, as well as wear any suggested PPE when they're out in public.
That's a good enough answer for me.
Is there any other? I'd just like to thank the employees that are working so hard to get the information out to our businesses, to our homeowners, and to the visitors that are coming. I mean, they've done a tremendous job with holding meetings and putting stuff on social media and bulletins. And so I'd just like to thank them, because I know they've worked overtime doing this. You've done a great job. So thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a wonderful staff here. Our Hyde County staff is a blessing to us all.
All right, if there's no other business, I'm going to ask for a motion to recess this meeting until June the 28th at 6 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
May 28th, I'm sorry, May 28th at 6 o'clock. That's right.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Swindell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Paul. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We are recessed until May 28th.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.